I think RCB have just made it a point that they want to be the newsmaker of the year. From winning the IPL, then what happened in the aftermath, and then at least as an RCB fan, can you imagine RCB not playing at Chinnaswamy? 2 billion means more than 30 times the annual revenue. If you're talking about 30x valuations, I mean at least 10x of it is the name RCB.
RCB. Now, does that nomenclature go out of the window? Do they kind of buy rights to just acquire the name?
Anyone who wants to right now enter this market or who wants to buy RCB won't be just from a business lens. It's also from a PR lens, marketing lens.
People from Saudi Arabia and the investors there are trying to wet their beak in different sports all over the globe. They can do nothing to salvage their season until the next mega auction.
I honestly don't know why would Sanju just agree to being a player in another side, because that's exactly what he was going to get with RR any which ways.
मुझे वो भागम भाग का सीन याद आ रहा है अभी तो मैं जब भी संजू सैमसन को देखता हूँ कि वो दोनों डिस्कस कर रहे थे ना कि यार ये इतना वैल्यूएबल आइटम है तो उसको बेच दें तो अक्षय कुमार को बोलता है कि हाँ तो यहाँ पे बैठ जाओ और बोल ड्रग्स ले लो. If they're looking at Samson as the captain, that is a very poor look on a franchise like CSK. This means that they just got lucky with Dhoni.
We need to understand that an IPL auction functions at nearly 10x the purse that a WPL team has. Teams need to start understanding that auction strategies are different from on-field strategies. Auction is a different game altogether.
Hey guys, what's up? You're watching yet another episode of Bat Ball and Bear on cricket.com with me, Avni Shaikh, and as you can see, Akshay Kumar Swami and Soyesh Agarwal to discuss a lot of pertinent topics. Probably going down the IPL route today because, look, given the fact that there's some newsy news to discuss first, including the sale of RCB, and of course, not to forget the small matter, the CSK RR high-profile trade deal. We'll give you some more and maybe a bonus with Akshay at the WPL as well. First and foremost, introductions out of the way. Akshay, how's your weekend? All well? And how do you soak in this RCB sale, brother?
It's been very interesting, the developments, especially because, a lot of new names have entered the fray in terms of potential owners and whatnot. So it is going to be interesting to see how this whole pans out, because it's a massive development, not just for RCB, not just for IPL, I think for the whole of cricket in general, because this is the most expensive team that we're talking about in cricket history. So it almost sort of sets precedence to what we can expect going forward, in terms of investments and whatnot. So yeah, all eyeballs will be on it and everyone will be closely watching the proceedings.
Yeah, we'll dive deeper in a few minutes. But Som, how's your weekend been, and how have you consumed all the news going on this weekend?
Yeah, like I always do, not thinking too much about it because rumors इतने हैं अभी कंफर्म हो जाए तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है. Let the rumors fly by. Whatever we'll get a confirmation in a week. So I mean, let's put everything aside. Some interesting developments on the WPL front. Because confirmed things are always better to consume than rumors. So yeah, that got me interested. Again, regarding the RCB sale, I mean, based on my knowledge, they've just sort of have opted for a strategic review. But I think Akshay will give us more information of why he feels that this is surely going to happen.
Let's get it on the point then, Akshay, because so much has happened for this franchise in this last year. Obviously winning, then poor news of the Stampede falling out, potential talks about stadium reconstruction. They might have to play outside Bangalore. We'll see how that transpires. But the whole last 48 to 72 hours has been about the sale. Can you put it in context for the uninitiated in terms of why this is happening right now and why it could be a very, very big deal for the IPL, not just Bangalore?
Yeah, I mean, to begin with, of course, the incident that happened on the 4th of June, right after the IPL final, also played a role, because that's when a lot of stakeholders who are a part of Diageo, United Spirits, were of the opinion that it's probably time now for us to move past this, move past this investment. And just very recently, last Tuesday on the 5th of November, United Spirits disclosed to the Bombay Stock Exchange that they are looking to sell, their sort of stake in RCB SPL, if I'm not wrong, basically the private limited, that the entity that owns RCB, the trademark name, and of course the teams in the WPL and the IPL. And they've also set themselves a deadline of the 31st of March 2026. which clearly indicates that now they are actively looking to make a sale. The strategic review that Somesh spoke about was happening right after the final and everything, because, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of stakeholders were of the opinion that, this is a non-core investment for us. We are essentially an Alco Bev company, and that should be our focus. And also, amongst other things, that Pradeep Someshwari, I hope I'm getting the name right, who's the head of United Spirits, mentioned last week. He also spoke about how for them the focus is on creating value for their shareholders and everything. A lot of technical talk and whatnot, which essentially means that cricket is not their business, cricket is not their cup of tea. Vijay Mallya is no longer, part of the system, and he was the one. It was his brainchild. He was the one interested in investing in cricket in the first place. Given that nothing of that sort exists, and also add to that, they've won the trophy, which means the valuation will now be at an all-time high. We feel that this is the right time to just move out of this, maximize their earning potential, and then yeah, just move forward.
What are the figures floating around then? I mean, just for the, layman out there, is it in excess of 2 billion? Because that's what's been rumored.
Yep, that's the numbers going around right now in the secondary market as well, and that's the valuation that RCB is also expecting, of course, because in 2022, which is when the last time an IPL team actually entered, or rather, new owners actually bought an IPL team. LSG and Gujarat LSG was the most expensive buy, and that was pegged at about $900 million. So RCB, given their fan following, given the kind of support they get, not just online, offline too. So add all of that, 2 billion would be a fair estimate, because they are by far the most popular team in the IPL and arguably the most popular cricket team going around. So yeah, 2 billion would be a fair shout.
Okay, Somesh, with regards to this sale, do you think it's come at the right time for RCB? Because normally, when you look at sales being happen in sports teams and franchises over the world, it's obviously going to be done for the better. RCB already in a good place right now, even though the last 17 years was pain-stricken. They finally turned the corner, but do you think this will actually further boost them? Because the biggest kind of takeaway from me is that they could lose the main sort of URL, if you like, or the name RCB. Does that sit well with you, even if you're not an RCB fan?
Actually, there are too many things to pick here. First and foremost, I
Okay.
think from a sports perspective, I think RCB have just made it a point that they want to be the newsmaker of the year. From winning the IPL, then what happened in the aftermath, and then potentially looking at developing a new stadium, building a new stadium, and looking away from Chinnaswamy. Can you imagine? At least as an RCB fan, can you imagine RCB not playing at Chinnaswamy? So that is something that, I mean, is all was already very difficult, and now this news that they are potentially up for sale. Now, there are two aspects to this, like what Akshay said, that probably from a valuation perspective, time is ripe because they just won the trophy. I'm pretty sure that they will be the most valued IPL team as of now. Even if you look at a few reports, they might suggest the same. So from that perspective, if you're looking from an investor point of view of making the most bang for the buck, now when Kohli is still around, which might not be the case in 2 years' time, so that is something that might be a consideration as well. I don't know. This is just a speculation from my end, but I can sense something around uncertainty around future valuations based on the new law as well, because that might have been on investors' mind because you're looking at potential drop in broadcasting revenue or advertising revenue in the future because of that law. RCB are already profitable. They've been able to repay whatever they had to when they bought the franchise, which is applicable to all the older teams. It's only the new teams who still have to pay the remaining amount of what they bought, which essentially they have to pay over a period of 10 years. So RCB is profitable, but they feel that future valuation might take a hit because of the new law, and the owners are already in one of the sin goods, so they don't want to be at all associated with any other sin goods at this point of time. Maybe that is a calculation that they would have made. So yeah, from all that perspective, probably from an investor perspective, this is the golden period to make an exit. But it is a very surprising move because I don't think cricket or IPL has still hit. It has still peaked in terms of what they can offer. I'm still surprised at the few numbers that are floating around because 2 billion means more than 30 times the annual revenue. So that is those are the valuations that are unheard of. Even in the US market, the top teams are valued around 10 times the annual revenue. So this is more than 30 times, so which is a lot. Let's see who comes up. As an RCB fan, I really wanted to ask you, will you be okay with your new owner being someone who has been, accused of cheating in an online chess game? Would you how would that sit with you, or will that fall perfectly in the RCB image of what they've been, trying to make news for all the wrong reasons right now?
Okay, you want to take that first?
Yeah, 100%. And also, I just stand corrected on the name. It's Praveen Someshwar. I just wanted to put that out there. And secondly, of course, about the owners. So I do agree in terms of valuation, it might be very expensive. But I also believe anyone who wants to right now enter this market or who wants to buy RCB, it won't be just from a business lens. It's also from a PR lens, marketing lens. So you spoke about Nikhil Kamath, of course, who is also in the fray. He's also so he's a part of a consortium along with the Manipal Group and Adar Punawala. They are slated to place a bid for RCB. For them, the biggest reason would be that imagine Nikhil Kamath right now might be one of the most popular entrepreneurs, and that popularity would reach a whole and altogether different level, with this ownership, which is essentially why Vijay Mallya in the first place invested in RCB. It was just a decoy to promote his brands, and that's what other entities will also be looking at. So while I do agree 30 times revenue might not make a lot of sense, but when you look at network externalities in terms of how their own business would have a would sort of see an uptick, and their own PR and popularity would see an uptick. I think this would be a great business proposition for any new entities, and that's where I think RCB have all. I mean, the current group has also been smart in sort of choosing 2025 right now to sort of make the sale, because like Somesh said, there's still some value to be maximized. Had IPL reached its peak already, or RCB reached its peak, then any new entity would have always asked for a discount, saying, boss, I'm not going to make any money out of this right now. But because there's still that growth potential, that's what they're looking to sort of cash in on and say, you know what, RCB can grow from here, IPL can grow from here, and whatnot. So I think the time is right for existing owners. It's also a great business proposition for new owners. And Nikhil Kamath will definitely be an interesting choice, because from what I understand, apparently the folks who are coming in, they also are looking at sort of rubbing shoulders with the who's who of the Karnataka political circles and whatnot. So again, RCB is arguably the easiest path to sort of to reach that milestone. So yeah, it's understandable. I couldn't care lesser, to be honest, at this point in time, as a fan, as a neutral. Who does it go to? I don't think my sort of my focus, or I'm curious about who it goes to. I'm curious about the whole process, what the bids are going to look like, what the valuation is going to look like. That's definitely going to be a thing to note.
I mean, I feel it's an uncontrollable from a fan's POV, obviously. I mean, new owner coming in, but a new coach as well.
No democracy here. We're not
See,
voting
this is
for our owners.
this is where what Avnish said is interesting, right? I mean, see, from a fan's perspective, you couldn't care less who the owners are, as long as the team is doing well.
Yeah.
Now, if at all you get an owner who himself wants to be a face or want to use this as a PR opportunity, see, might not be a good sign from a health of team performance perspective, right? You already have a good system in place with Mobad there being as the director of cricket operations. I think that's what his title is, and they've reaped reward of his presence. There is another. So if this is a consortium, I'm just gonna I'm drawing a parallel with what's happened in the 100. They have a consortium of a lot of Indian tech guys who've taken over London Spirits, and they have assigned Mo Bobat as their sort of head of cricket operations for that team. And London Spirits have been one of the most underperforming teams of the 100 there, which is not the case with RCB anymore. So I think, I mean, even from an outsider perspective, if I think about a team, I just hope that no matter who the owner is, it should still be about the team. That's at the end of the day. I mean, that is what matters, because you wouldn't want to change or fix something that is not broken. And with RCB, they should only be going onwards and upwards from here, to just borrow a phrase that Avnish often uses.
And another interesting name to actually talk about over here would be Parth Jindal, because he's made no bones about
Mm,
the fact that he
mm.
would be interested in RCB. In fact, for those who remember, way back in 2016, Parth Jindal's JSW had actually made a pitch for RCB. Even then, they had bid for RCB, because that was around the time when Vijay Mallya had to move out, and it seemed like RCB was up for grabs, but unfortunately, the sale fell through, which is why JSW then went for Delhi Capitals. And once again, there also it's a joint partnership, but we all know the rules. No single group can own two IPL teams because of conflict conflict of interest, which means Pa Jindal will have to move out of Delhi Capitals first and then make a bid for RCB. So that's actually going to be very interesting. Thoughts on that, folks? Like, imagine something like that happening, because JSW has definitely been one of those, private entities who's been big on grassroots sport, who's been big on sport in general. They've invested in football, kabaddi, and whatnot. So that way it would be good, but it's a massive risk. Imagine they let go of Delhi Capitals and then end up with nothing.
Yeah, Parth Jindal was a name I generally thought of as well because of my allegiance to BFC and what he's done in terms of the turning around of the club over there and is loved by the fans. So I think it'll be a smooth transition. But because of the complexities and him being involved in the Delhi Capitals, I don't see that happening. I think he'll probably go the Adani route or go the Nikhil Kamath route. I don't see it either way. Someone else popping into the fray. And for the longest time, we got to understand that Vijay Mallya used this team to, of course, like Akshay said, promote his brands. And it begs the question, guys. I mean, we think about this team and you think about those three famous letters, RCB. Now, does that nomenclature go out of the window, Akshay? Because obviously that is a boozy brand and then it's carried on from there. Do they kind of buy rights to just acquire the name? Because I think that'll definitely be part of their thinking, won't it?
Was recently clarified. The trademark, the name itself will be a part of the sale. So it's not, of course, whatever the reasoning behind it is, if the news owners are comfortable with the name, if they feel that, you know what, we don't care about Royal Challenge and everything, we want the name, then yeah, they can continue with it. But yeah, they have that option. It's basically their choice. It's not the existing owners who get to decide whether they can use it or not.
So at this point of
Mm,
time, if you're talking about 30x valuations, I mean, at least 10x of it is the name RCP. Rest
yeah.
everything comes later, because I mean, see, from any normal business perspective, you wouldn't want to change the brand name of an entity like that. That's A. B, unless and until there are external forces at work, I wouldn't rule out Saudi investment in the team,
Okay.
because I mean, we have had an IPL auction there, and we see people from Saudi Arabia and the investors there are trying to know wet their beak in different sports all over the globe. So I won't be surprised if they come out as potential bidders in some way, shape, or form, maybe as a part of a consortium or standalone. I mean they have the deepest pockets in the world right now. So I wouldn't rule that out, unless and until, of course, there are external forces at play which stop that from happening, which would surprise me, because if that was the case, probably IPL wouldn't have gone out of the way to have an auction in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, for the uninitiated, Saudi Arabia has a sovereign wealth fund
Yeah.
of $600 billion. I mean, those are fathomable numbers. And
They
on top,
wanted to buy Formula One. They
exactly.
wanted to buy. They've given like a 20 billion offer to buy Formula One itself from
Yeah,
nobody.
yeah. They've done that even with golf. They've just massively disrupted golf with live golf and everything that's happening
Yeah.
there, which is why, I mean, of course, people talk about sport washing and whatnot. Also, Saudi, very recently, this was as recent as last month, they announced their vision that, by 2031, they want to sort of have a tournament, a full-fledged tournament that's happening there. They've already signed a partnership, an MOU with the ILT20, where a lot of their, sort of pre-season tournament, pre-tournament games that happen, for the growth of the Middle East players and all that used to earlier happen in Qatar will now happen in Saudi. There's also talks of a Saudi franchise joining ILT20 and the ILT20 moving to Saudi Arabia. So they are massively interested in cricket. And if there's one sort of entity that can actually fight BCCI, tooth for nail in terms of money, in terms of finances, it has to be the Saudi sovereign fund. So yeah, make no mistake, they will definitely be interested for sure.
Yeah, they try to have that same effect on various sports, and let's see how it goes. Because even if you look at the grander scheme of things, they've also got the FIFA bid to host the World Cup in 2034. So everything is moving in that direction. Coming back to the whole RCB sale, and just to conclude on this, guys, because Akshay mentioned at the top of the piece there, it's within March 31st, 2026, where we will surely know the new owner and all of that. Any other key dates to look forward to from just an off-field perspective in terms of when this could be done, when a potential name could just be informally announced and then pick it up from there?
So unlike the BCCS tendering process and all, where owners are accepted to send in bids and whatnot, this is a private disinvestment. So, nothing's going to be out in the open, so there won't be any deadlines as such. And 31st of March is when the transition is expected to happen, which means well before that, the owners would be announced, the process would have begun.
Hmm.
What's been already confirmed in some sense is that WPL 2026 would be the last time an RCB team under the current management, and by management I mean the current ownership, would take part on the field. So that would be the last time. 31st March 2026 is when we'll see the new ownership to have taken effect, and that is again the last date. That's the deadline. So it can happen much before that. If the IPL is starting before, they'll probably do the announcement and everything before that. So yeah, that's the only date we have right now, and I don't think we'll get any date as such. We'll just have announcements made that, what, these are the new owners and whatnot.
Okay, our good old friend Shub was trying to compare it to the Delhi Capital sale from the Delhi Daredevils era, but I was like, no, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be much more smoother and hopefully keeping that RCB name intact. Right, sticking with the IPL, guys, and Soma, I'll come to you on this first. Early hours, Monday morning, saw the headlines and one Jadeja for two. Karan, and of course, not to forget Sanju Samson being the subplot in here. We always debated it on cricket.com whether Sanju is going to go to CSK, but right now, the price of two dash for one dash. You can fill in that in the comments below, viewers. So, your thoughts?
मुझे वो भागम भाग का सीन याद आ रहा है अभी। तो मैं जब भी संजू सैमसन को देखता हूँ कि वो दोनों डिस्कस कर रहे होते हैं ना कि यार ये इतना वैल्यूबल आइटम है तो उसको बेच दें, तो अक्षय कुमार
इसको
गोविंदा को
बेच
बोलता है
दे।
कि हाँ तो यहाँ पे बैठ जाओ और बोल ड्रग्स ले लो, ड्रग्स ले लो। तो आई थिंक राजस्थान आर इन दैट सेम मूड कि सैमसन ले लो, सैमसन ले लो। कि they're just trying to sell Samsung in however so possible. See, the reason they are looking, they are looking desperate when it comes to trying to trade Samsung with someone because they know that they have the option to release him in the auction, but it's not going to give them anything valuable in return because they're. I mean, if I'm actually looking at the player pool this time that can potentially be in the auction, and there are hardly any names that can be like कि भाई इस ये प्लेयर को मेरे को देखना है कि ये कहाँ खेलेगा. So they must have sensed it already. If we know it, they know it that they won't be getting a lot of players in the auction pool, especially a lot of Indian players that they can sort of swap Samsung with. That's why they are desperate for a trade. The other rumors that we heard were them getting KL and Stubbs, if I'm not mistaken.
It was Stubbs and Rizvi. So KL was with KKR. Basically, it was a three-way. RR was involved with four
तो
different
two some, threesome, foursome
threesome
सारे
सब
type
चल रहा
के
है. Exactly. Yeah.
सारे type के trades with Samsung have been discussed. See, if Samson goes to CSK and they have Karan and Jadeja in, I think that's a fair deal for both teams on merit, because Samson or any one of them would have been a win for only CSK and not the other team. But two players, both all rounders, probably is something that might help RR. Having said that, I mean they can do nothing to salvage their season until the next mega auction. They goofed up the mega auction significantly, and there is nothing that they will be able to do to salvage it, in my opinion. Even get these two all-rounders, both of them, Jadeja, from all numbers, you can look at him and say that he should not be playing as a batter in a T20 team in IPL, to be honest. So calling him an all-rounder at this point of time is just because you know that he has that capability, but not that something that has transferred on the actual field. And same goes with Sam Curran. Sam Curran has been having an identity crisis. No one knows how to use him. Is he a new ball bowler? Is he a death bowler? Is he a upper middle order batter? Is he a finisher? So unless and until you have a very fixed identity about how you're going to use Sam Curran, which I feel he should be your number four, number five max as a batter, and he should be a new ball bowler. You bowl 2 overs or 3 overs with him up top and just get done with him. So unless and until they get that sorted, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they don't have a lot to lose, but I'm interested in the other way around on how CSK use Samson, because they already have a lot of players which they were able to discover last season while they were struggling with all the senior men. Finally, they were able to identify a lot of youngsters and realize that just having experience is not gonna solve all crisis for you all the time. But when Samson comes in, is he a leadership potential? Are they looking at him as a captain? Will Now, will Gaikwad be the captain this season, or will they want Dhoni to be captain one last time, or maybe once more? I'm not sure. If they're looking at Samson as the captain, that is a very poor look on a franchise like CSK, because that means I've already said this on our show earlier. This means that they just got lucky with Dhoni, and since then, all their decisions they've taken on leadership, transition has been nothing but a failure.
Akshay, let me ask you this, because I think some pertinent points mentioned in terms of who's going to get the better side of the deal. According to you, who do you think it is? Because if MS is going to play, I think it's confirmed also this week that he will play 2026. And I don't want to, God forbid, say it's his last, because that's what we keep speculating. How do you kind of fit Samson into that CSK jigsaw? And then automatically, Jadeja and Sam Curran walk in regardless to that RR starting 11, whether they like it or not. So who do you think's got the better part of this deal?
I don't think there'll be an obvious winner. I do agree with Somesh, but I still would lean with CSK on this because Jadeja and Sam Curran, maybe on paper, are two all-rounders and whatnot, but if you just look at performances, and Samson is a gun, marquee Indian wicketkeeper bat, that's exactly what CSK are looking for, in terms of Dhoni successor and whatnot. Jadeja has at best one auction cycle remaining. He's not getting any younger at 37. Sam Curran, he's yet to prove himself or come good in the IPL, so you don't know what to expect off of him. Although a lot of potential, I personally do rate him very highly, and I was very surprised with the way CSK used him. I thought they did not use him as well as they would have liked to, and that's where once again CSK's 2025 would be a season that they want to forget. But having said that, my biggest concern is how are they going to massage the egos of Rutraj Gaikwad, of Sanju Samson, given that Rutraj, like Somesh mentioned, was made captain, and if he's going to hold on to his captaincy, I honestly don't know why would Sanju just agree to being a player in another side, because that's exactly what he was going to get with RR any which ways. The biggest point of difference was the fact that Sanju wanted to be a captain, and that's where I once again have to say KKR would have been a much better choice for him because he would have been a very clear captain. There was no one else. But with CSK, you've got a Dhoni who will of course be there like always. You've already got a Rutraj Gaikwad who was made captain last year. And if CSK choose to continue with Rutraj, that will be almost till the end of Sanju's IPL career, to say the least, because what he's got 2-3 cycles left. Rutraj is younger than him, so which means Sanju will have to then just be content being a player. And then we've already seen that Sanju for Team India has now been pushed down the order. He's been given that middle order role, so to say. So does that mean we'll see him do the same for CSK? Because people are talking about how he will open with, say, a Rachin Ravindra or an Ayush Matre and Rutraj Gaikwad in number three. But once again, that defeats the purpose because you can't be opening for your IPL side and then expect to be, picked for the national side as a finisher. You're not strengthening your case that way. And that's where I don't know how exactly will CSK look at this. How will they solve for it? And also, before we go further, I think we should also discuss each of RR's, I don't know if we can call them mishaps, but failed attempts at training Sanju. I completely agree with Somesh. RR were desperate and rightly so. Had I been a part of the RR management, one thing that was certain was Sanju Samson wants to leave. So you knew you can't hold on to Sanju Samson. There was very little to be gained by just releasing him into the auction, because we've said this even in that bet that we did a few weeks ago. This is arguably the first IPL auction in a very long time where we don't have enough players that we're looking forward to, which means what will RR do with that purse? They'd rather trade. So the first trade that really picked up a lot of momentum, and it actually came close to being signed, and that was with Delhi Capitals, where Stubbs and Samir Rizvi were going to be traded to Rajasthan, and Rajasthan were going to trade Sanju Samson. Apparently, where it fell through was the trade was initially just Stubbs for Samson. It was a straightforward swap. Stubbs had been bought for 10 crores. Samson had been purchased for 18 crores, which means RR would have gotten an 8 crore bump in their kitty and Tristan Stubbs. But apparently, RR once again against their infinite wisdom, asked for Samir Rizvi, and that's where Delhi made it very clear they're only going to do a one player for one player swap. And when Samir Rizvi was brought in on the table, that's when Delhi sort of stopped reciprocating, or they stopped responding, and that's where it fell through. I'm like, why do you need Samir Rizvi so badly? You've got enough top order batters in your lineup. So that was very surprising. Another trade that was being considered seriously was a three-way trade between RR, Delhi, and Kolkata, where RR would trade Sanju Samson to Delhi, Delhi would trade KL Rahul to Kolkata, and Kolkata apparently were all but open to sort of letting go of Russell to the Rajasthan Royals, who are in need of an all-rounder. So that was in works, but apparently that fell through for whatever reason. There were no specifics mentioned, but this was in the works. This was being discussed, but fell through. And another trade that I got to know very recently. So Ash spoke about it in his video. Apparently, Punjab had approached Rajasthan Royals for Sanju Samson, and they were ready to give Marcus Stoinis in return. But apparently they wanted Marcus Stoinis along with an Indian spinner. I'm assuming it's Chahal. But my question is, Chahal is 18 crores, Marcus Stoinis is 11 crores. Where are you going to make that money from your kitty? No one knows. But so that fell through for that reason, which means RR have tried enough. So there might be a million reasons why Samson does not want to be in RR, but RR not trying enough wouldn't be one of them. So I'll give them that. They might have messed up a lot of other things. They've tried. They've tried.
No, whatever said and done, the whole list of possibilities that Akshay has mentioned right now, there is only one scenario where Rajasthan were actually would have ended up with a better deal in
Yes.
the Thurston Stubbs swap.
Which
I
is why
mean,
Samir Rizvi क्यों चाहिए था तुम्हें गधों?
well, that would have been a massive W for RR and a massive massive L for Delhi Capitals. But I don't know. Maybe Rajasthan were like कि नहीं यार इतना बुरा भी नहीं करना चाहिए किसी के साथ. So let's kill this deal.
I
Come to
can't.
think of it, guys, when was the last time Akshay RR actually had a really good top all rounder? Don't tell me Shane Watson, because since then they've been trying to fill the void with your Neeshims, your Daryl Mitchells, whoever you name
Holder,
it.
Jason Holder.
Old
In the
Joe
last
Root for a little bit.
The last auction cycle was, of course, just merry-go-round. They had Nathan Coulton, and who all. But Ben Stokes, of course, comes to mind. In the 2018 to
Mm.
20 phase, they did have Ben Stokes. They've unfortunately not been able to replicate that, and that's been plaguing them since 2022. Even in the mega auction, we saw them go. They were the losing bidders for Krunal Pandya, but that's where I was mighty, mighty, mighty surprised that they did not go hard for someone like a Marco Janssen. He was picked for what, 4 odd crores by the Punjab Kings. Someone like a Marco Janssen at number 7 for the Rajasthan Royals would have solved so many problems. So that was very
Yeah.
bizarre. But yeah, I mean,
That one, and also I was very surprised about Washington Sundar. I mean, they should have
Mm.
hard for Sundar because not only they not have a good all-rounder, they did not have Indian spinners as well. They had to let go both Ashwin and Chahal. So probably they should have tried hard for Sundar rather than spending a lot of money for buying more pacers, and they spent a lot of money on Archer as well, to be honest. Especially for a player, that upcoming Ashes, that will be his priority, not been fit lately. So I mean, I mean, see, Rajasthan and KKR are the two teams that I feel are very, player oriented. That they just eye certain players. They feel comfortable with certain players and just want to, break banks for those players. And we've seen this play out historically.
And with Rajasthan,
Alright.
of course, in the last mega auction, it was a very clear strategy. They went very big on Indian pacers. They bid for more than 7 pacers, if I remember correctly. I know they bid for Prasid, they bid for Siraj, they bid for Arshdeep, they bid for Akashdeep. They were the losing bidders on Akashdeep as well, if I'm not wrong. So they were very clear they'll go for an overseas spinner strategy and overseas spinner combo along with Indian pacers. Unfortunately, it backfired massively, but yeah, it's going to be tricky for RR. Very tricky from here. But that's where Bishnoi potentially being up for grabs now at the auction. RR will have to make him their top priority. Hardly any Indian spinners up for grabs. It's not going to be easy from here.
Just to close out this chat, guys, and I spoke to a CSK friend when I heard about this news, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, you guys have always kind of reaped stability in kind of keeping your core members, and I think it's high time that they've got rid of one of their two guys. But Ashwin, of course, not with them anymore, and now Jadeja and Karan. Is it a different kind of CSK we're going to start seeing soon? Because for the longest time, we associated this team to kind of be so particular about their assets. And now do you think, because is it showing the desperation for Sanju in a way?
Actually, it's showing desperation on multiple grounds, not just about having Samson the player. They're desperately trying to find a new leader, someone who can carry the team forward for the foreseeable future. And B, I mean, this season in particular, they were particularly found out with their a age-old adage that just buying players who are seniors will just do the trick because they've been there, done that. IPL has changed a lot. Power hitting has changed a lot, and with the impact player rule, you need more dynamic players in the squad, and you probably need players with a higher ceiling. CSK usually operated with having more players with a higher floor, so to speak. But I think the dynamics of IPL has changed a lot in the past few years, where you need players who are six hitters and not just boundary hitters and low dot balls and so on and so forth.
Hmm. Let's see how that news unravels in the time to come. Akshay, you want to just finish off this conversation before I pick your mind about WPL, bro?
Yeah, just one more thing to add. Like, I wonder when will the rope also end for Stephen Fleming, because let's be honest, this decade has genuinely been a very ordinary one for him. So if we look at the 6 seasons that have happened in this decade, CSK have made it to the playoffs twice and they ended up winning the trophy. The only commonality between those 2 seasons was the fact that MS Dhoni was their skipper. And when you look at the other 4 seasons, three of them were led by someone who was not named MS Dhoni, and they to say that they faltered would be a big understatement, which clearly means that is Stephen Fleming the coach? Then probably someone who got lucky with MS Dhoni. Once again, just tying back to what Somesh was also mentioning, that I do wonder when will they start having such conversations, because as long as Dhoni was there, Fleming was also someone who shared a good rapport with him. He might be a great player manager. I'm not going to sort of discredit him from everything. But now that CSK will have to look past Dhoni, does that also mean it's time for them to start looking past Fleming? Because you need to ensure whoever it is going to be, Gaikwad or Sanju Samson, you want to give them an entourage that they are comfortable with. So that's why I wonder, because my mind still goes back to one of the mid-season press conferences that happened, where a reporter asked Stephen Fleming about how the strategy to back older players has backfired this time, and he went on to say on record that what, the question's stupid, I don't want to answer that. Sure, it might have been a moment of weakness and whatnot, but for him to sort of say something like that, which kind of showed rigidity on his part. So that's why I do wonder, at some point in time CSK might want to seriously have a chat with him, understand how they're going, what they want to do, because there are plenty of options available outside as well.
Hmm. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you guys make of this deal. Who's getting the better side of it? You guys heard Somesh and Akshay's thoughts. And of course, if you guys missed out, check out that RCB chat as well. Right. And last but certainly not least, in this episode of Bear Talk, let's talk about the fascinating WPL and the retention. 17 women, of course, being retained by the 5 franchisees, and some interesting names, predictable names, and of course, to kick things off this conversation, who better than Akshay Kumar Swamy? Akshay, first and foremost, do we start with beloved RCB? Because 4 incredible names, Smriti Mandhana, Richa Ghosh, not to forget the girl who lifted the trophy, Shriyanka Pal. That's the most impressive name for me. And of course, the other elephant in the room, which I don't want to sing, let alone take the name off. Talk to me. How do you sit? How do you feel? Comfortable?
Yeah, very interesting. Especially with the kind of strategy some of the teams have gone for. Even before the retentions happened, when the mega auction was being contemplated by BCCI, it had been made very clear that RCB, Delhi, and Mumbai weren't in favor of it. It was Gujarat and UP who had actually been pushing the BCCI to have a mega auction, and you can almost see that play out in the retentions that have happened, because the 3 sides that not want a mega auction, surprise, surprise, they are the ones who've retained their core and try to hold on to as many players as possible. So, starting with RCB, of course, Smriti, Richa, Perry, and Shriyanka in that order. Not surprised at all with the order or with the players itself. Slightly surprised by the fact that Richa Ghosh commanded a premium over the salary band itself. So she was their second retention, which means she ideally would have been retained at 2.5 crores, but she managed to get an uptick on that as well. So she's been retained for 2.75 crores. Great potential, arguably one of the best batters that I've come across in the recent past when it comes to Indian women's cricket. But 2.75 crores is a fairly steep price. So I was a tad bit surprised by that. But of course, still goes without saying, I don't think RCB were ever going to release her. And that's why someone like a Shriyanka Patil being retained at the price that she was, 60 lakhs, that definitely played a role. And good on her, good on the team for being able to negotiate properly and get these players in. I guess there would have been some conversation between whether they should retain Sneh Rana or Shriyanka. If I'm being completely honest, I was actually leaning slightly towards Sneh Rana's favor, simply because she's been in great recent bowling form. In the last WPL, we saw her batting also come to fruition. We saw her batting exploits in the World Cup as well. So I really thought that, and add to that her experience. That's something RCB would want, given that there's no Luke Williams. Malur and Rangrajan is now a first-time coach for their WPL side, so they would want a bit of experience. But they've gone with potential. Shriyanka has undoubtedly oodles of them. So fair enough, fair shout there.
Okay, we'll get into each team specifically. So, your first thoughts on some of the biggies being retained, and like you said, Richa getting an uptick of 25 lakhs, a little bit more than her current Indian team captain, which she'll probably text Harmandeep and be like, you know what, you got 2.5, I got 2.75. But again, regardless, your first takeaways from the WPL retention zone.
See, I think Richa deserves to make up for the loss of revenue because the West Bengal government only paid her the amount of lakhs in the runs she made in the final, right? And whereas everyone else at least got 50 lakhs, if not 1 crore. So that's okay if I think she deserves a little more money than a few other members in the team. Having said that, I think with RCB, the three Indian retentions were fairly straightforward, and which also sort of did not leave them with a lot with wiggle room to retain another overseas players, any other overseas player apart from Perry. Danny White is a surprise release. I mean, probably ideally they probably would have wanted to retain her, looking at she's one of the more fluent T20I batters when it comes to the side of women's cricket. So she's someone that I'd have my eyes on when it comes to the auction. But I'm a little surprised, and I want to pick Akshay's brain here that RCB have not retained any uncapped Indian player. Is it a reflection on their recruitment, or do you think they missed out on any potential player that probably Akshay would have wanted them to retain?
So when it came to uncapped, one name that I've really been impressed with is Prema Rawat in the India-Australia A tour that happened in August. She was fantastic both with the bat and ball. A leg spinning all-rounder who can bat at number 8, number 9 is very aggressive. So she was definitely a name I'm pretty sure that even RCB would have discussed. And but 50 lakhs is probably a bit too steep. One thing we need to understand, and this is something I'm going to really enjoy about this mega auction, a WPL auction is markedly different from an IPL auction, make no mistake, and it's not just down to the player purses. We need to understand that an IPL auction functions at nearly 10x the purse that a WPL team has, but unfortunately the bids don't reflect that. A player, for instance, Deepti Sharma, will be at a base price of 50 lakhs. And you see players of base price 50 lakhs even in the IPL. Except 50 lakhs in the IPL is what, about 1.5% of the total purse. And that number for WPL would be about 4%, which means each bid is roughly 0.5%, 0.6%, which means it's not going to be easy. Like the increments won't be just as fluid, won't be just as quick. And similarly with Prema Rawat, 50 lakhs, although the amount might seem very minuscule, but when you look at the purse size and everything, it's going to be very difficult. She'll be at a base price of 10 lakhs because she's an uncapped player. So you would imagine that, you know what, RCB are probably taking a punt on getting her cheaper. So fair shout. I'm not too perturbed by the fact that they've not retained any uncapped players. And about the overseas bit as well, yeah, because they went for 4 players, our IPL, I mean, the WPL GC had made it mandatory that if a team is going to retain 5 players, then one of them has to be an uncapped player. They can only retain a maximum of 4 capped players. So, like Somi said, it meant there was very little choice for them to go for anyone else. Georgia Wareham is my personal favorite, arguably one of my favorite cricketers. Like she's definitely part of my top 3 when it comes to women's cricket. Yeah, dil pe patthar rakhe thoda. I'll just hope that they've held on to that RTM importantly. So somewhere that RTM will also now come into the picture. So it's not a bad deal overall, so to say.
The way I see it, I think there will be a lot of buybacks from an RCB perspective. Snehrana is a name that even I thought of why they couldn't probably hold her. But then I know the sentimentality, thinking the price point of Shriyanka, and hence that way. Let's come back to RCB in a bit. We'll focus on the other teams right now. And let me just, of course, tell you guys names briefly who's been retained. Now, on the MI front, Akshay, I mean, what Somesh is saying, the fact that, okay, fine, the Kamalini has been part of it because that's particular rule. Do you think they've kind of missed out on any other names, or do you think they will now be full-fledged in that auction?
Misdar, as in, of course, I mean, I think these were this is the best combination of 5 players. I would have definitely had Hayley Matthews over Amelia Kerr. I think she's a far superior all-rounder. Kerr is probably the better bowler, but as an all-round package, Matthews is right up there with the best. What was also intriguing was the fact that Harmanpreet took a haircut on her salary, 2.5 crore band, but she's taken only 2 crores. So that was also very interesting to see. Of course, which also led to a lot of people talking about how selfless she is and whatnot. And the PR could not have been more noticeable. A Mumbai captain being selfless and whatnot. But jokes apart, Kamalini is an interesting punt. Also, I feel the right punt because India has a massive dearth of domestic wicket keepers. Barring Richa Ghosh and Yastika Bhatia, there's no one else. The sort of the fall in quality after these two is very steep. So given that and given the potential that Kamalini's shown, sure, she's just 16, 17, but a young wicketkeeper batter who can be very aggressive. I don't think Mumbai want to lose out on that potential, which also means that Mumbai, in all likelihood, will be playing her in the upcoming season throughout. She will be a starter for them. Amanjot Kaur picked herself, so did Harman, so did Nat and Haley. Kurd, Pooja Vasarkar, to some extent, people might argue, I'm sure you can discuss, but no, I think the names pick themselves.
Okay, Delhi Capitals, another fascinating bunch of names that they've retained. Nikki Prasad, no Karnataka bias there, but I want to start a little bit with that. Again, is it similar on the lines of Emma and picking Kamalini because they've gone for four retained cap players?
Sure, yeah. I mean, Nikki Prasad was also a bit surprising to me, although I see where Delhi is coming from. A solid player where she has lots of potential. In fact, was the player of the match in her WPL debut as well. She came up with a couple of handy cameos whenever she got to bat. Not so high on the strike rate front, and that's why I was a tad bit surprised. But of course, she's definitely one to watch out for the future. She last month also attended a camp that was organized by the BCCI for future leaders. She's leading Karnataka at the age of 20. Was also the winning under 19 captain for Team India in the last World Cup. So clearly, lots of potential, lots to look forward to there. A mature, very calm person. But of course, apart from that, when you look at Jemmy, Belsi, Annabelle Sutherland, Marizan Kaap, and Shefali Verma, I don't think you can argue with any of these names. There was a lot of chatter on Meg Lanning. I mean, she's been your skipper. She's taken your side to three finals. But once again, she's not getting any younger at 35, 36. You've got someone like a Jemmy who could fit in. I mean, no one's saying that she will probably replicate her performances as a leader, but you have to sort of take a call. The McLaren at 1 crore is probably a bit steep. I think she'll be available for cheaper at the auction. So it is understandable. And yeah, fair shout in terms of each of the retentions. What was very interesting, once again, like this is how dynamics work, right? You've got four player bans. Each of the four retentions that they went for have been retained at 2.2 crores. So not a single player has been paid more, not a single player has been paid less. Jemmy, Shefali, Annabelle Sutherland, and Marizan Kaap, each of them have been paid 2.2 crores. I think that was also a very good move on their part, ensuring that they don't have to massage too many egos because each of them in their own way sort of could have made a strong argument for being the top retention or the second retention. So by doing this, I think they've done a good job of ensuring no one feels hard done by or anything. So that was also good on their part, I feel.
So it makes you think if any of those four are captaincy options, because like Akshay mentioned, no more Meg Lanning, maybe they get her back at the twilight of his career, of her career, but I honestly don't see that happening. Do you see Jamie potentially being nurtured as and the next big thing is a leader for Delhi Capitals?
Yeah, I'll be very surprised if they don't try to get Lanning back, at least for now, because from a leadership perspective, I think Jamie and Shefali are the two names that they'll be nurturing and they'll keep a close eye on who they sort of want to push. But at this point of time, I don't think either of them are ready,
Mm.
especially a team who would be hungry for a title, because I mean they have been the most unluckiest WPL teams so far. So probably yeah, I think they would want to go one more cycle with Lanning.
And one more left field choice if they want to. Annabelle Sutherland, by the way, is the captain of the Melbourne Stars, where McLanning also plays. So Annabelle Sutherland's already captaining McLanning over there. So if they want to, if they really, because she's definitely one for the future. Once again, a gun all rounder, offers both with the bat ball as a gun fielder too. So if they really are sort of keen on not shopping a captain outside, or if McLanning is out of their budget, Annabelle Sutherland could be another name that they would consider.
Okay. Three down, two left. We'll pick up the pieces with UP Warriors, Akshay, because honestly, we've known this team to be having a mantra, spin it to win it, with Dipti Sharma and Sophie Eccleston. All of them have gone, and it's just one Miss Sherawat. I mean, talk to me. What's their thinking there?
I'm mighty impressed with this. I'm very happy that they've done something like this because this is the only way they could have, done something in terms of rebuilding a core or something. And yeah, for what it's worth, I think I'll also be sort of shedding my red and gold and will be donning the yellow and purple at least for the WPL auction and will be rooting for them because this is a side. I mean, see, all they can do is ensure that they control the controllables. And in that sense, they have done that because sure, Deepti Sharma is a great player. So is Sophie Eccleston. So is Grace Harris. So is Alisa Healy. But none of them command a 3.5 crore salary. And when you don't have anyone who's worth that, you're always playing a losing battle if you still choose to retain someone at that price. And that's why we'll get to Gujarat Giants as well in due course. I think UP Warriors got that right because this also means they have four RTMs, which means now they'll be inducing a lot more chaos and other team strategies because the other teams don't know now. Do we go hard for Deepti Sharma? Do we not go hard for Deepti Sharma? Do we go hard for Sophie Eccleston? Do we not go hard for Sophie Eccleston? And make no mistake, because they have more than 50%, I mean, they have 50% more than the more purse than the second side. So Gujarat has 9 crores, UP Warriors have 14.5 crores. That's a difference of 50% there. And they have more than 2x the third, fourth, fifth place sides in terms of purse size, which means they can bully anyone with just the sheer money that they have and that buying power that they've managed to gain by going clean slate. So I'm very happy with this. And the reason I also say that is I took part in a WPL mock auction recently and I did something similar with the site that I was a part of. And I could see, how easy it became for me just because I had 2x the purse as the rest of the sites. And only because they chose to retain and I didn't. And that's why, once again, this is going to be very different from the IPL. In IPL, we've always seen teams do well with the mantra of, one in hand is worth two in the bush. Always retain your core, always hold on to your players. That's not how WPL works. Another thing we'll have to keep in mind is in IPL, we've always heard the likes of Dan Weston say, right, that you know what, don't go for the obvious red herrings, the big names, the big players. Unfortunately, that's not how WPL functions. There's a very clear gap with between the big players and the relatively lesser known uncapped players, which means you need the big names. You need the marquee players that are going to come in the first two sets. And if you need them, you need some money. So I think they've really gotten their pre-auction strategy right. Now I'm very keen to see how their auction strategy goes.
There's
Yeah,
so much wholesale changes, bro. I mean, honestly, would you like to be in the UP W camp right now? They have 4 RTMs and all of that.
see, actually, there are multiple things to look here. First and foremost, they have a new coach.
Hmm.
So Abhishek Nair is a part of the team. He's someone who has been part of successful IPL teams, and IPL is much much tougher to nail in terms of auction, building your team, and performing during the tournament than WPL at this point of time. It's mathematically, I mean, commonsensically, it's twice more tougher. But if you go to proper mathematics, it will be way more than that. So I think he has done some calculations here, or at least the team that he probably would have had to support him. They've put together some calculations and figured out that if they have bigger purse, they can do a lot more damage. Because I mean, look at the quality of players they'll be up for grabs in the auction. I mean, you can just I mean, I'm just trying to list out a few names in my head, and it's just insane the quality of players that they can buy. So, kind of looking forward to it. Again, this is one team that has not done really well. So, I mean, if ever they want to restart, this is the time.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how they go. Big fish on the table in the auction, and like Akshay, keenly looking forward to. They will, of course, throw the cat amongst the pigeons in some of their attentions for sure. I mean, RTMs, I should say. Finally, the Gujarat Giants. Two names there, two stellar names. One of my favorite cricketers, in Ashley Gardner, and I always kind of wish her best. So we'll start with you here. Um, any other names you feel like they could have retained, or do you think these are the two best of the bad buds, so to speak?
Yeah, first and foremost, I mean, the most underachieving team of the WPL till now. And that's
Hmm.
one. And a team, I mean, surprisingly, not many teams have been in the news for wrong reasons. But even in that small list, Gujarat Giants find themselves there. So that's not a good thing. And of all the teams, if I could actually question the retention strategy, Gujarat Giants was one of them because I would have picked Phoebe Litchfield over Beth Mooney at this point of time. That is the swap that I put. Even if you want to retain only two players, of course, Gardner is a no-brainer, and probably she'll be leading them as well, unless and until they end up buying a significant Indian name. But I don't see that happening. I mean, the biggest Indian name in the auction is going to be Deepti, right? And I don't know
Hmm.
if you probably associate a captain to her because if that goes away, then Ashley Gardner is your captain. But I would have picked Phoebe Litchfield over Beth Mooney because I think she's more suited for this format. She has more shots and bigger future. Throwing her in the auction with teams like UP and their big birds. I mean, you might as well say goodbye.
No, and she's definitely someone who's given it the recency bias of the World Cup, left-hander, age profile. So I completely
Yeah,
valid
and
those thoughts. And
it just felt like a very conservative move.
Yeah, but what won't be conservative is your predictions with Akshay in 2-3 minutes times after Akshay finishes his Giants analysis in terms of where you guys think certain players will go. Because Somesh is looking forward to that exercise, so am I, and so is Akshay. Akshay, just to pick up the pieces and finish off with Gujarat Giants, then. Um, could they have retained any Indian name there, or was it never going to be? Because these two foreigners have just, of course, been the silver lining of that franchise.
See, if you just want to look at names in isolation, sure, someone like a Kashmi Gautam, Indian pace bowling all-rounder,
Hmm.
she's definitely one they would have considered. Harleen, the old Team India batter and whatnot. There were names. But what we need to understand is, were these names worth those retention bans? And that's where, once again, so basically the way I had looked at this before, the retentions were announced was UP and Gujarat were the laggards. They had to get their pre-auction strategy bang on to ensure they reduce the gap. I think UP Warriors have done a great job of that. I think Gujarat has done a great job of just increasing that gap between them and the other four sides. You've spent 40% of your purse and you've gotten yourself Ash Gardner and Beth Mooney. Ash Gardner, I can still take it with a pinch of salt. Premier all-rounder, offers captaincy value. She leads the Sydney Sixers now ahead of Alisa Healy and Elise Perry. She's led the Trent Rockets. She's a gun all-rounder, gun fielder, everything going in her favor. Fine. I'll take that. 3.5 crores might be a tad too expensive, but fine. Beth Mooney at 2.5 crores has to be the stupidest retention. And I'll have to be a bit blunt here simply because she was bought for 1 CR in the inaugural auction. Sure, let's say she's a very bankable player. She will always give you runs at that 120, 130 strike rate. Might not be too aggressive, but she's a bank. She'll always give you 300, 400 runs every season. Is that worth 2.5 crores? In my opinion, it's a definite no. And that's where the reason why I'm even more annoyed is because WPL retentions have a very clear cap on the number of RTMs and the way you use it. So basically, in any RTM retention combination, you can buy back only two of your players. Now, having retained two overseas players, that means they cannot use any of their RTMs on the remaining overseas players, which means you've already played your cards out, which means the other teams now know your strategy, which means you can't go back to Phoebe Litchfield, which means you can't go back to Deanna Doughton, which means you can't go back to Laura Wolfhard. Why would you do that? You could have let go of, I mean, if you let go of Beth Mooney, you could have gotten back her for cheaper. You would have had an RTM option, which means other teams would have to then factor for that uncertainty, would have made their planning trickier, which means you could have then had a better chance at creating a stronger core. Like, you need to understand, like, this is a zero sum game, and auction is a zero sum game. You have to induce chaos in other team strategy so that you can also go further. And I don't get it. Like, teams need to start understanding that auction strategies are different from on-field strategies. Auction is a different game altogether. So I was very annoyed, because Phoebe Litchfield, I agree. Between the two, I would have probably picked Phoebe, but I still understand where they're coming from. There are very few top tier wicketkeeper batters. Even in the auction, it's only going to be Yastika, who's very injury prone, who has strike rate issues. And then there's Alisa Healy. That's one keeper with UP, Delhi, and Gujarat, three teams in search of one, which means there'll be a lot more demand and lesser supply, which means they'll be a lot more expensive. I get that. But even then, 2.5 crores, I don't think she would have been worth that.
Clearly irked you a bit as a women's cricket analyst, and it's evident. But more on the auction, because look, we'll be doing a lot about it. November 27th from Delhi is where the WPL mega auction is going to kind of unravel from, and we'll definitely kind of be tucking into that one. Before we finish up this episode, like I promised you all, some fun with the boys. So many great names going to be popping up in the auction, so give me your three particular predictions. Who's going to go where? So, for example, if you believe Dipti Sharma is going to go to Mumbai Indians, tell me that. If you feel Grace Harris is going to be pocketed by RCB, tell me that. I will start first because I think RCB are going to go for Lauren Bell. Akshay?
Only
They
you are a
should,
part
man.
of the think
They
tank.
honestly should.
See, the thing is, I mean, I know for a fact that this is not your line of thinking, but there's still some sense, there's still some method to the madness that Avnish just put forward, because RCB recently announced Tanya Shrubsole as their assistant coach and their bowling coach. She's associated with the Southern Brave, where Lauren Bell also plays, where Smithy also plays. So there is that connection, which means they could potentially go for her. I highly doubt Avnish was thinking from that lens, but Lauren Bell would be a very interesting pick. Overseas pacers, I personally don't think WPL needs too many one-dimensional overseas pacers, and that's what Lauren Bell is right now. She's a great new ball bowler. She's developed a slow one, but still not good enough for middle or death overs. I'm very cold on that. I, for one, think Smriti will be partnering with none other than the number one run scorer of the ODI World Cup, Laura Wolfart. So we'll see number one and number two opening together for the Royal Challengers Bangalore.
Ooh.
In the upcoming season, I'd be very surprised if that doesn't happen. I'm very bullish about it.
Tom, can you top that one? Because there's Amelia Kerr, there's Phoebe Litchfield, there's Lanning, there's Grace Harris. Bro, the names just go on and on. Eccleston.
भाई नाम के तो I mean if you look at just the name, uh, I mean the even the players who part of the World Cup winning team, see, based on how these things go, I'm pretty sure that even Pratika Rawal would be someone
Mm.
people would want her in the team, though she's a little conservative when it comes to the hitting side of things. But I mean, by future हिसाब से तो you never know how she's gonna develop. And then so many names. I mean श्री चारनी भाई, I mean अगर option होता तो they would have retained her. अभी तो क्या है कि I don't want to use a lot of phrases that probably I would have used for IPL, like bite the hand off or blah blah blah, to just to get that player. I don't want to use all of those phrases, but yeah. So these are the two names. But I think I'm just looking forward for some justice for Deandra Doughton. I hope she ends up. I think at this point of time, I can fairly assume that probably she'll end up with with the UP Warriors, uh, because they have the purse, and Abhishek Nair has worked with players from the Caribbean in the past. So I think she deserves a good WPL run. So that is something that I'm interested in. And again, I see even Sophie Eccleston probably will end up with UP Warriors, because again they have the money to do that. Kiran Navgire is another Indian name that I'm excited to see how she progresses. Again, Kranti God is another Indian name who did really well in the World Cup. So probably UP Warriors again, because they at the end of the day they need some Indian players as well. They can't make a squad of completely overseas players. So it's going to be a lot of fun, because a lot of overseas good players are up for grabs. But the thing is, teams at the end of the day they have to pick a lot of Indian names too. So वहां पर वो क्या calculation लगाते हैं is something that I'm pretty excited about.
Okay, quick one from me, boys. Dipti Sharma getting the highest bid is an Indian, or again, some of the names that Somesh threw in actually is food for thought. So, Dipti, to yield the highest bid.
Oh, yeah, potentially yes. I mean, yeah, it'll be surprising with someone else, but I wouldn't rule out Pratika Rawal, because अभी एकदम वो हवा है. And
सोमेश मतलब पेनी स्टॉक एकदम खरीद के रखे जस्ट वेटिंग फॉर द स्टॉक टू गो अप नाउ
हाँ, अभी खरीद लो, क्योंकि अभी एंड Indian batters with shots. I mean they are a rare entity, right?
फेयर
अभी तो ये बोलना भी थोड़ा अनजस्टिफाइड है, क्योंकि वर्ल्ड कप विनर्स हैं, बट स्टिल T20 फॉर्मेट में आई थिंक इवन hardcore fans like Akshay will agree that India still has a distance to go to become favorites for this format as well.
Okay,
agreed.
Akshay. So, Dipti, the highest for you?
Yeah, Deepthi, in all likelihood, will be the most expensive Indian. And I don't mind going as far as to say that potentially the most expensive player of the auction. I don't see too many sort of eclipsing her there. Eccleston, I'd be very, very, very surprised if UP Warriors don't RTM her. They've just let go of her because they feel that they can get her back for cheaper. So that's pretty much it. I'll add a few more names that I think would go to these respective sites. And I agree with Somesh and Samson's daughter to UP is a fair shout. They were also losing bidders in the 24 auction when Gujarat Giants bought her. So they were interested in her then as well. So I won't be surprised if they show that interest once again. Amelia Kerr, I think, will be donning the red and blue of the Delhi Capitals. I think she'll be a part of them because Delhi Capitals, one of their biggest struggles in the last auction cycle was the lack of a leg spinner. They did not have that at all. They had Poonam Yadav in the first season, never played her. They let her go in the second season. They were the losing bidders for Prema Rawat last year when she went for a whopping 1.1 crores. So they've been very big on getting a leg spinner. Amelia Kerr is arguably the best leg spinner going around, add her batting value to that. So I think that'll make for a great middle order to imagine Jemmy, Amelia, then you've got Annabelle Sutherland and Marizan Carpet 3, 4, 5, 6, along with Shefali at the top. I think that would be a very good middle order. So that's definitely one thing I think will happen. And another player, Renuka Singh Thakur, I think will be going west to the Gujarat Giants. I think she'll be donning the orange and yellow of the Gujarat Giants. They need a solid Indian core. That's something that they massively struggled with in the last auction cycle. Expecting them to RTM Kashvi Gautam and Harleen Diol. Along with that, if they are able to buy back someone like a Bharti Fulmili and then also bring back Renuka Singh Thakur, that's genuinely a very solid core forming. So I expect Gujarat to go very big on her because UP will go for Kranti Gaud. Delhi can go for Arundhati Reddy, can go back to Shikha or Tita Shadu. Mumbai have Amanjot Kaur. Every team already has some Indian bowling options, pace bowling options or otherwise. So Gujarat will be eyeing for one. And yeah, that's those are three predictions and all that I think I'll be looking forward to.
It makes for compelling viewing, guys. And just to reiterate, 27th November, cricket.com will be making a lot of news about it and plenty of movers and shakers like the boys have hinted upon. Thank you so much for your time, Akshay and Som, in this debrief of the WPL retentions. But we, of course, unpacked a lot of IPL things as well. Hope you guys enjoyed this elongated podcast. There's more to come, of course. Subscribe to us if you guys haven't already. Check us out on our social. Until the good next time, it's a goodbye from me and Akshay and Somesh. Till then, be peace. Cheers.